Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today, I have Dal on, and we bonded over bread. Yes, bread. And something that we were just speaking about before this was that it is as simple as calories in, calories out. However, it's also not as simple as calories in, calories out, because if it was as simple as that, we wouldn't be struggling. We wouldn't have a multi-million-dollar industry that is preying on you by claiming it's your cortisol, it's your hormones, it's menopause, it's this, it's that. And I was ranting my brain off to her before this call on the fact that I said that 1,500 calories is not your maintenance. And I had so many people come at me saying, if I eat anything more than that, I gain. You can't just determine this based off a simple post or just talking to someone or just whatever. Like, actually can, because as simple as science is, our behaviors are not. And Dal lost a lot of weight. I'm going to let her tell her story. She could easily say, and probably has said, that anything more than 1,500 calories, she gains weight, until she learned exactly what she was tracking. Because you can track how many times do you eat out in a day. I mean, in a week, in a month, because those very meals could be double the calories that you're putting into your calorie tracker. Like, all of this shit counts. And it's very easy to think that and believe that because it feels so real that anything over a certain amount, we gain weight and we can't lose weight because of this, that, and the other. But Dal, you tell me, you're the one who's lost a shit ton of weight. You know the story.
I've lost a whole person.
A whole person. And she's still eating bread.
Yeah, and I'm still eating bread. Yeah, when I first started, I honestly believed the same thing, that you had to eat 1,200 calories. When I started, I was on Weight Watchers, so I was actually counting points. And I did that for years. Like, I've utilized Weight Watchers on and off for obviously over the last 2 decades prior to doing it this way and actually succeeding. And so when I first started, that is what I was doing. However, once I started training with my coach, I started immersing myself more into nutrition. And that's when I started learning about calories and tracking. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to preface it by saying that it's not that I was eating too much or too little. It's just that I guess I was eating too little, in the sense that I actually could have been eating more and still losing weight, which was shocking to me. So that's where I finally started to realize, because I started cross-tracking between Weight Watchers and a calorie app like MyFitnessPal, and I was like low calories, 1,400, and I was losing weight. However, I was finding myself going in and out of a deficit all of the time, like going into surplus, going into maintenance, because I was restricting myself so much, and I just found myself so hungry all the time. And so I would throw myself out of that. And then when I up the calories, it's not like, you hear the term reverse dieting. It's not like I reverse dieted. Because I had so much weight to lose, I could just go into less of a deficit. I didn't have to be in, let's just say hypothetically, 700 calories deficit. I could have been in a 400 calorie deficit or a 500 calorie deficit. And so, yeah, tracking for me in general, like, really helped me realize and see that, wow, like, it opened my eyes that food, wow, like, I could eat this. I didn't have to. And I use this example all the time. I could have a donut or I could have a banana, and, one is more nutrient dense than the other. But on Weight Watchers, it was like the donut would take up half of my points for the day, which makes no sense when you look at it relative to calories, right?
That's the very thing with the calories you mentioned, because you were trying to stick to 1,300, and this is the issue with people thinking that anything over 1,500 calories they gain weight. It's like, yeah, well, you're sticking to 1,500 most of the time, but what about the other days? And this is where because I'm very into, let's just get you into more of an aggressive deficit and then get back out of it. But the thing is, aggressive depends on what is sustainable for you. And I hate the term sustainable in the same sentence as diets, because diets are not sustainable. So it's not sustainable for life, but it needs to be sustainable for a long enough period of time that you get a diet done, have an exit period or a maintenance phase or a diet break, and then get back into it. It just needs to be sustainable for that period of time. And if you're trying to eat 1,300 calories and you have kids and they're going to want to eat McDonald's all the time. Like, how is that helping you adhere to your diet, especially if you have this much weight to lose? And this is the thing that I think you're going to be really good on talking on, because I'm very big on saying it doesn't matter if you have a lot of weight to lose or not. You need to have periods away from focusing so intently on grueling through. You can have friggin', okay, American. You can have 90, let's just say 80 to 100 pounds to lose. You can have 60 to 80 pounds to lose. Sometimes focusing on just intensely dieting is the worst thing you can do, because you're fatigued, you're burnt the fuck out, and you have so much weight to lose. That is exhausting to think about. Like, I have to live my whole life like this, sacrificing all of this. Do you think, actually, this is a good question, do you think that that's the reason that most people struggle to sustain any change, because they feel like now they have to become a completely different person and make all these sacrifices for the rest of their life because they see it as a marathon that they have to sprint? What's your experience?
Yeah, listen, it's really overwhelming when you have that amount of weight to lose. It's just like, you know, in my mind, it was like, I have 100 plus pounds to lose. How is that even going to happen? And in my mind, you know, when I first started, there was still a timeline attached. And initially, like, okay, I could probably do this in this amount of time, but I quickly realized, no, like, we need to let go of the timeline. And when you, like, even as a coach now and just being a heavier person, there's limitations. It was hard to move, you know, when you're like 120 plus pounds overweight, whatever the case may be. I found it difficult just to move. So if someone came at me and said, you have to do this, 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 and this, like, that can really overwhelm someone. And so I just started with tracking. That's it. Tracking food. I didn't even look at the quality of my food. It was just like, track your food. At least then you're in a deficit. And then when I was actually tracking calories and whatnot, and I was in the process, and it was like 6, 8 months, 9 months, I actually focused on the quality of my food. And I think that's why even if you don't have so much to lose, just start slow. Start with where you're at. You know, what are you realistically capable of? For me, it felt like all of the odds were against me. I was in postpartum. I had hypothyroid. I'm 40 plus. I had a newborn baby. Of course, I had to deal with my relationship with food. I had an alcohol dependency at that time. So I had all of these things that at the time felt like, wow, how am I even gonna like just even address one of these things, let alone all of them? So yeah, for me, it was just, when you go into it, just look at it, just meet yourself where you're at and look at it from the perspective of, I don't have to do everything. And I also don't have to do, you know, whatever it is that I'm seeing on social media, or what this person did or what that person did. So yeah, it's difficult. It's, you know, and when you see all of these things being thrown at you, you know, whatever you're looking at, whatever the algorithm is that is curated for you, that can be difficult to kind of sort through and filter. And so just meet yourself where you're at is my kind of advice, and let's start there and figure it out.
There's two things you said there before I want to go into something that I feel like will help the people that listen to my podcast that do have a lot more weight to lose, that find themselves spiraling because of their relationship with food, and I guess their past experiences, because I have a particular client in mind as well that I feel like if I speak about her experience, you speaking to that sort of person is going to help so many people, because I see so many like her. But you mentioned starting tracking with food first. It wasn't even, this is where it doesn't matter where you start on the spectrum. Yep. Not focusing on intentional, like crazy ass fat loss first is always going to be the first step, because you cannot build something sustainable, something that you want to do for your life in let's shred off all the weight in the most intense deficit possible lifestyle, because that isn't sustainable. You started off with just tracking food. It's like, build the habits in an environment where there's less pressure, because less pressure means less volatility to explosion. And that in itself is science. Like, have some pressure chamber and then put like a flame near it, and it's gonna boom, not that much pressure in the chamber, and the flame isn't gonna cause some huge explosion that's gonna be like an atomic bomb. But yes, I mean, algorithm, because there's amazing advice out there, but it's not amazing advice for you. Just like I'm going to hop on Stacey Sims again because she does my head in. Stacey Sims, I'm a PhD. Yeah, but that's in athletes. That isn't for the majority of you. And a lot of her advice is damaging to the typical person who just need like fasting cardio. If you're just going for a walk or a run in the morning and you're not an athlete, that is fine. But if you're underfueled, if you're trying to do too much cardio, too much training, then yes, that is going to cause a massive impact on the system. It's like, who are you talking to and where does this fit in and how does it fit in? Because the wrong advice can be lethal for some people.
Even for myself, when I started, I took everyone off of my Instagram account. Like I deleted everyone, friends, family. I unfollowed everyone. And I just say I decluttered my mental environment, right? Like everything, social media. And then as I went through the process and moved along through it, when I felt comfortable, as I worked on my kind of inner healing and the stuff up here, I always say, at some point I was ready and able and had the capacity to allow certain things back in. And so then I added certain people back into my life. I started, even just meeting my trainer. I was able to figure out like, okay, who do I want to follow? Who does this person follow? Is this someone reputable, credible, professional? And so I started curating my feed with the things that I now needed to see and wanted to see. And so it's just a huge part of it. And so if we're constantly overwhelming ourselves with all of this information coming at us from just different perspectives and whatnot, which is a good thing, but with so much misinformation out there, we have to stop and pause and ask ourselves, why am I seeing this stuff? Why am I seeing, hey, try this? Why am I seeing like, hey, does this work? Like, even if you have a coach, hey, does this work? And ignoring the boring basics, right? So we have to question.
I want to go into this because this just reminded me of a post that you put up. I screenshotted it because I'm like, this is what I sent it to a couple of people because I'm like, this is what I keep saying to you. Like, this is what I say. There is a reason that certain posts stand out to you more than anything else. We are uncomfortable. We want change now. And we want to see proof when we're putting in such hard work. But very rarely are we going to see that proof come to fruition within the time frame that we expect it to. So we're more likely to sabotage ourselves with this very stuff. It's like we need to learn metacognition to think about our actual thinking. Why are we thinking a certain way? Why are we responding to things a certain way? Because if you don't do that, then you're going to be so reactive to every single thing that you see. And when you're reactive and not proactive and planning and strategizing, it's very hard for you to ever move forward in the direction that you want to move into because you're constantly going to be putting out fires versus creating your pathway, which is exactly why I wrote it down here. You're like, focus on what you're doing, gain momentum. And that's exactly what you did. And I feel like this feeds into working on your relationship with food and the emotional eats, because that was, it's like, why are you responding to things a certain way? What's going on around you? Are you stressed out? Are there certain things going on around in your life that make you feel more out of control? So you're trying to find something that makes you feel like, oh my God, I have control over something. I can like hone in on something, because I know that that's what I do with my work when there's crazy things going around. It's like, I used to do that with my body and criticize my body all the time, but now it's just like, no, zone into lack, focus on this thing. It's like, we always find something that we want to cling to when everything else is out of control. But the emotions and the relationship with food, this particular client I'm thinking of, she had coaches that always cut out particular foods, said good foods, bad foods, this, that, and the other. You have to follow this meal plan only. So then I eventually got her onto a flexible meal plan. That's where we started with you must. The only must that was in there is you must eat dessert. No ifs, buts, or whatevers. It needs to be a dessert and it needs to have chocolate. Nothing else is a must except that. Because she had, like, I could tell that she had it in her head. There was that thing. She was always eating cookies. So it's like, no, we're having this dessert because then we can start to move you away from that fear from food, like certain foods. And then we did that. And then we moved into tracking. Because there was such restriction before, there's still this thing where we only now came to the conclusion, like almost a year later, that a lot of her actions around food, whether it's she's on or completely off or always overeating her food, is because she doesn't see the same timeline that you mentioned. Like there's all this weight to lose. I feel like I have to be in this restriction forever. I can never allow myself to enjoy these things. I feel like that's still a thing in her head because she never had it before. But also because of that, it's like, well, if I can't be on the plan all the time, then I'm completely off. That was the way it was before. They're kind of the
Yep.
same thing. But I'm going to let you talk about your experience, talk about relationship with food and how you managed it for someone like her.
Wow. So, I wrote about this before. I didn't even know what maintenance was. Like, had no clue, had never really lived in, quote unquote, true maintenance, but obviously maintenance varies and there's flexibility within that. But I didn't know what that was because it was, one extreme or the other. So it was like just going all out, saying fuck it, throwing in the towel and just doing whatever. Or it was extreme exercise, extreme programs, restriction. You can't eat this. It's funny because when I was in that mode, it was like, no, you can't have bread. Okay, you can't have, any types of carbs. You just want to have salad, chicken, this and that. And listen, whatever the reasons, diet culture, what we grew up with, all of these things obviously play a role because there is a lack of education, as one of the variables that was at play. And so there was really no nutrition education except for what came from diet culture, what came from magazine society, what was around us, culture, all of that. And so all my life, it was just that or that. And then going through this process, even in the beginning, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand maintenance. I thought, just like you mentioned, that this is what I have to do forever until I reached my goal weight.
And that was daunting.
Right. And it was very daunting. And it just felt like I didn't understand. Like I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then as I started to immerse myself and got more educated and started to understand it by tracking, I say tracking did heal my relationship with food. That was definitely played a role for sure for me, as well as doing my own kind of inner healing work and, emotional regulation, all of that. However, so when someone looks at my journey and they're like, oh, wow, it's been over 3 years, that's how long it's taken. I'm like, yeah, because I finally decided to take actual scheduled maintenance breaks because I didn't want to be in a deficit for that long. Was I fully comfortable where I was at? No, but I was content because I was working on my mindset. I was working on my inner healing. And so I was okay with being at, say, 180, whereas in the past, 180, I thought I was so fat and I hid from the world.
How did you work through that? How did you stay in that phase? Because I do know people that obviously they still have weight to lose.
Right.
And like you've been like, the thought of going into another deficit right now is never going to work because in your mind, you're still thinking about the fact that you need to lose weight. That's the way that I see it. Because if you're still thinking that you don't like where you are, you're not doing the inner healing, then this deficit, I still have fat to lose, I still have to do this, you're never going to sustain any deficit with that mental exhaustion. So how did you deal with this?
A lot of work, and I think one of the things in the past that I struggled with was actually communicating and sharing kind of my own struggles with anyone. I was very silent. And so I kind of say like, I just suffered in silence. Like I didn't want to share it with anyone. I mean, it's not like people didn't see it. I was constantly going up and down, but at the same time, I didn't want to face my fears, the fear of the unknown, meaning if I decide to finally choose to do this, then that means I also have to face this stuff. And that was hard. And I had to say to myself, it's okay. We're just going to figure it out. Whatever it is. But if I don't try and if I don't make this step, then I'll never know, right? What's the worst that can happen? And so I sought out community support, accountability. I went to a counselor. I did a lot of my own stuff. Instagram isn't all bad. It's not. We're on it. We use it. We use it to educate. And like you provide so much, just like there's so much educational material in your posts. Like I was telling you before, I mean, it helps me learn. And there's so many great people out there that we learn from and we can. And so now there's a lot of that, psychologists and stuff, again, making sure that they're reputable, professional and all of that. And so I did a lot of my own healing, reading, all of that, but community support for sure.
When you say reading, what books would you recommend to people going through this? I can honestly think of so many people that find it so difficult to be okay with where they're at and let go of the fat loss mentality, even though they know deep down they still have fat to lose. It's still fucking exhausting in the mind, knowing that you still have this journey to go. It's like going, like sprinting and not actually allowing yourself to go home and eat some food to then refuel yourself to go on the marathon again. It's just like sprinting and then staying on the road without going home. It's just like, no, I'm just going to stay on the road because I know that I have to run ahead anyway. I only just thought of this metaphor now. Thank you.
Right.
But this is brilliant. It's like you have this big ultra run, you're running on it, and you need to go refuel and just spend some time at home before you finish the rest of it. But if you're staying on the track, you're not enjoying life outside of it. You're not bringing any meaning into this. You're not even working on what's going on in your head, because this is where it goes into, you end up emotionally eating or going to other things because no one can deal with discomfort. Even I have ADHD. I clearly can't deal with discomfort. I need dopamine. But it's like until you can learn to regulate in some sort of way, which I found through, for me, I feel most regulated when I'm running or when I'm walking, because it's that left, right kind of that works the brain neurons. I don't know. It's just my way of doing it. Or there's music. I listen to like ADHD music. It's like finding your way of regulating is the most powerful thing. But I want to know this stuff, like what books, what helped you get through those periods to move away from it? What sort of healing? And then you mentioned, if I don't focus on this stuff, like all that stuff that could help people.
Right. Okay. So when I first started, there's a book for me personally that helped me, and it's called A Radical Awakening, and it's by Dr. Shafali. And it just, for me, it was like, question your belief. Why do you believe what you believe? Like this path that you've been on, who said it's so, right? Like we're born into this life. And, I come from a culture that is, I don't know how to explain it, but like I'm a female. So females in my culture tend to be kind of like treated like second-class citizens. We're talking 40 years ago now, right? Does it still happen? Yeah, for sure. That's still there. And so it's kind of like you think you have free will, but you really don't, because this path is set out for you with the people around you, your parents' beliefs, the society's beliefs, all of that. And so the choices that you make, they're also impacted by, for me, it was just like what was going on around me, what I experienced in my culture, in my family, and all of that. And so when I read that book, for me, it was just like, okay, it opened up my eyes. Alongside that, I also read Atomic Habits. So they kind of went hand in hand. And so those were two kind of influential books in the beginning for me. Another thing, what I didn't realize was that I was doing the work, like emotional regulation, because I was working on my parenting, changing up my parenting from kind of the traditional, how we've been raised, to more of connective, non-reactive, which meant that it's a me issue, right? It's my triggers. Like it's not my kids, it's a me issue. So I need to figure out why I'm dysregulated. Like, why am I reacting like this? Why am I responding like this? And so that also meant that I had to do the inner work. I had to do the healing. And so whatever that means to like your audience, or, people that are struggling with these things, it may mean that you have to see someone like a professional psychologist, counselor, to dive deep, do a deep dive and, look at those kind of things. But it also means that, you can do things like emotional regulation. Like you said, you go for that run, or you listen to music, or grounding techniques. Currently, I'm in Jeb's, Jeb, right? In his mentorship right now. And it's all about nervous system regulation and how can we help others use those techniques and strategies to help them through these moments of, binge eating, I'll call it, because that's pretty much what, the general public or population refers to it as. But why do we turn to food for comfort, and why do we use it to cope and whatnot? And what can we do in that moment? And, how can we guide, as coaches, guide our clients to a place where they can be more emotionally regulated, which is huge.
That's what I was going to say. Why do you feel like you used food? What was food for you? But also there was a question in there that I want to highlight again. What's the worst that can happen? I feel like so many of us are afraid of asking that question because we're too moving away from fear-based versus what are we moving towards. And it's very hard to move towards something and know how we want our life to look when we spent our whole lives beating ourselves up, which is why I feel like this part's important, because you can't ever have change that sustains if there is no self-compassion within this. Like self-compassion leads to change. And if there's no self-compassion, that's where the food comes in as well. And I feel like this is a really great thing for you to speak on, because the fear of not losing results, the fear of gaining it back, it's always going to be there. The fear of, like, I didn't have a lot of weight to lose. Like mine was disordered eating on the opposite spectrum. And for me, I actually had an eating disorder. Tracking actually helped my relationship with food as well, because I was tracking, yes, but I was tracking, like, back in the day, I started tracking and getting really deep into nutrition from when I was in year eight. So yeah, so I was obsessed with nutrition from there. I was like reading all the nutritional research, but I went to the complete opposite spectrum. Yeah, I was like, everything needs to be veggies only and fruit only. And then I went down this like vegetarian vegan route. I'm like, no, it just needs to be like all this kind of stuff. And it was not fueling my activity. Like, I went that deep, but then I started tracking food. But this is why I brought myself up, because yes, I was tracking before, but it was with a different intention. Whereas now this time it was on an app, and I was tracking for, I want to track to see how I can make sure I'm getting in enough protein now. So that ditched my veganism. I'm like, no, I need to start eating fish. I'm like, I'm not going to eat any meat, any chicken yet. I'm going to ease myself into this. Meet yourself where you're at. So I started as a pescatarian, but I was always eating protein around my training. And I ended up, well, for me, I ended up gaining about 12 kilos within my first year of training. So I think quite a lot of that was muscle, because I was training properly, because I did an exercise sports science degree. So I was following all of that kind of stuff. But for me, if it wasn't for that, I would still be in that same relationship, because now I was tracking with a new purpose of, I want to build muscle. I want to have energy. I don't want to lie in bed all day. I don't want to feel like trash. So I feel like bringing in that identity shift. So that was kind of like focusing on something else that gives purpose to your tracking, where it's not trying to shrink yourself, where it's not trying to like change your body in a negative way. That's the only reason I brought up my context. They're both similar in their own way. It's the intention behind it.
There's the fear of kind of the unknown when you start to take that deep dive into addressing the things that you've been suppressing, and then using food for comfort or to cope. And then the other side of it is the fear of gaining weight, which is what I was afraid of, to live in maintenance initially. So that was still there, like, oh no, if I eat more than this, I don't want to gain the weight. But obviously so one thing about this is, when we say trust the process is that you have to let go of the timeline so that you can move through all of these different experiences and actually experience it for yourself. Because you can read, for me, my personal experience, and even some of my clients, it's like they'll read it, they'll see these posts, they'll say, yeah, I know, or whatever. But until you give yourself that time, I don't think you'll actually believe it. So letting go of that timeline is definitely fundamental to this entire, when you have that much weight to lose, or any amount of weight to lose, it's fundamental to that. And then I'm going to just double back on what you said before about compassion and kindness, having self-compassion. That's one thing I lacked, never had, the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we see ourselves in the mirror, whatever the case may be, I didn't have that. And so those components were so important in my journey, where I just had to take a step back and say, you know what, it's okay. Like, enough. You have to stop doing this to yourself. You have to stop talking to yourself like this. You have to stop looking at yourself in the mirror. Your body, like, you gave birth to 2 children. I mean, come on, I've been through a lot. As women, we go through a lot. Our bodies go through a lot. And so I started to appreciate what my body was capable of and has provided me over the years. And so that shift really, really helped. Like, that's almost a necessary shift, having that self-compassion and that kindness and giving yourself grace. A client of mine always says grace and space, which is totally true. You have to give yourself grace and space, right?
How did shifting that negative self-talk show up in your life? How did it change things? And what did you start doing? And how did you start acting differently? What did it allow you to do?
So, for example, this was a pivotal moment in my journey, and why, when you ask that question, I feel like, it's just kind of embedded. So initially, if my son was invited to a birthday party and it was at a pool, I remember this exact situation, said, no, I can't make it. It had nothing to do with not being able to make it. It had everything to do with how I felt about myself, and knowing how overweight I was. I didn't want to get into the pool with him. So in my mind, it's like he's missing out on all these experiences. I mean, we can talk about this later, but it still wasn't enough to shift change. And then when I'd lost about 70 or 80 pounds, I was still quite overweight, but because I'd been doing the work for so long now, I established this kind of sense of inner confidence where I knew what I was doing was working. I was also working on my inner healing. And so at that same weight, like I said before, I felt super fat and then hid from the world, hid behind clothes, never took pictures. But now on this journey, being 70 pounds lighter, when we got that invite for that birthday party, I just went out, got a bathing suit that fit, that I felt comfortable in, and I didn't even hesitate. And I went to the pool, and he had an amazing time. They had an amazing time. And yeah, like that moment, like I said, is embedded, because even though someone looking outside in still may perceive me as overweight, this time I didn't care, because the confidence that I had, it came from within, because that confidence was attached to the work that I had been putting in, the things that I've been learning, the skills, the tools, all of that. And that comes from just letting go of that timeline and knowing that I would get to a point where I wanted to get to, but in that moment I was content.
For some reason, everything just makes sense. It really does. It's like, I hope other people can make sense of this and put the pieces together, because it really does. You need to stop. What I got out of what you just said is you need to stop and be fucking proud of yourself. Like, you need to pause and realize what you've done, because all of this confidence, like the ability for you to stop. This is I think because I've been through it as well, just differently. Obviously it's all self-perception, because we don't view ourselves as we really are. It was puffy and inflamed and all that stuff from all the stress I was putting on myself and trying to force my body into submission, versus the self-compassion that you mentioned, versus actually doing the inner work. And this is why it's imperative to anyone at any body size that you do this stuff, because you're never going to feel happy. You're never going to be there, because you can get the best body in the world and still never be happy and satisfied. The most stunning on stage physique when I did my second comp, and because I still was not happy. And for me, it was, if I don't have something to strive for, if I don't have this date to show up for and to hold myself accountable to, and to show off to social media, because I can't let social media down, then I felt like I was going to fall off. I was going to get lazy, because the only thing I had in my past to fall back to was I quit on everything. I never stayed consistent. I can't lose all this because I just put all this work in. So for me, it was, I had to keep striving for something. But in turn, that kind of almost put me into relapse with disordered eating kind of shit, where I was in a place, well, I didn't go back down there, but I was in a place of fear of maintenance. Like you said, I thought I maintained on 1,400 calories. I was training 6 days a week. I was doing HIIT cardio. I was trying to get in walks through the day. I was sleeping straight after my training sessions, which probably has to do with the fact that I wasn't maintaining, because I was I'm a tiny person. If I'm spending any amount of my day sleeping, which was everything when I wasn't training or walking or doing cardio, then that's going to have an impact. I was eating 1,400 calories because I've already known the discipline, the strictness. I wasn't overeating. I was undermoving. And that impacted so much. And this is what it's the fear of maintenance and the timeline. You mentioned the timeline and the fear of gaining. For me, it was, but I have to now deal with my relationship with food. And what if I overeat? Because my eating's already sporadic. I overeat at nighttime because I eat like a bird during the day, which I never admitted that before, but I ate like a bird during the day trying to save calories for nighttime. My food is so dysregulated. If I allow myself to eat more in the day, then I'm still going to eat too much at night. I don't trust myself, which is why I went full circle to say you need to trust yourself. And you need to have a stack of proof. And I call it the recalibration phase. You need to be okay this messy middle where you could fall on either spectrum. But if you don't allow yourself to go all in without your mind still focusing on all of that negative stuff, the what ifs, I need to go back into a diet, I need to fix things, I need damage control. No, just embrace it so that you can get some sort of regulation within yourself. So then you can actually stick to something, feel empowered in that something, and realize, hey, I've done the fucking work. I've built this identity. Now I know that I'm not going to lose it. I'm fine. And then when it's time for me to do what I need to do, I know that I can apply myself and stick to it because I have nothing but proof. It's banned.
Yeah, no, the identity thing, that's huge too, right? How do you become that person that you want to be? And that's going to change, from when you start throughout, but how do you get there? And for me, Okay, I'm going to tell you another story because I feel like these stories help. Initially, again, like I said, when I started with my trainer, by that time now, so I had to lose, or I personally lost 50 pounds. And I felt like when I had lost the 50 pounds, I could go for walks. So I increased my movement where I could, and when I could. So I went from, like, 3,000 steps just at home to doing maybe, 5, 6,000 steps. Now I was also training once or twice a week, which led up to maybe 3 times a week. But I'm still dealing with, like, lack of sleep and all these other issues, a child at home, COVID, all of that stuff. That was pre. But so I was driving to my training session one day, and in my head is like, I can't do this. Like, this is too much. I'm now tracking, I'm watching my nutrition, I'm walking, I'm doing these training sessions. This is a lot. And I felt overwhelmed. But in that moment, I had this kind of aha moment. And it's kind of like my personal mantra, but and professional. It's like, you know what? Fuck this. I am just going to work within the parameters of my life. Like, I can't look at all of this and say, this is what I have, just because, I have to do this, this, and this, and this. And someone saying that this is what you should be doing doesn't mean that I need to. I need to do what works for me right now, what's realistically, what I'm capable of. And so I went and, talked to my trainer about it. And he's like, yeah, for sure. Like, obviously, like, this is your life. You have to be honest about it and look at what you can realistically do. And sure, yeah, let's just work out once a week. Maybe it's twice a week for you, whatever works. And so the caveat being, I didn't use it as a reason not to do the thing, because I think often we will be in our heads about it and we'll, find reasons not to do it. And so it was really like, no, I don't have the energy or the sleep, or my kids, they're young. And so I can't get a training session in fully. I need to break it up, whatever the case was. So sometimes I will focus on one thing. Sometimes it's a few things, and sometimes it's all things. And, just even today, like, I'm still doing that. Like, right now I'm only doing 2 full body workouts a week. And I'm okay with that. But I'm also okay with my expectations, because I know my actions meet my expectations, right? So I don't know. Does that kind of help? Like, that was my thing. And that's something that I've lived by, and I think is so, so important for even some of your clients that are listening, or your audience. So when you ask, like, when you have that much weight to lose, or amount of weight to lose, that is definitely one of the mantras that I definitely follow. It's like, just work within the parameters of your life, meet yourself where you're at, but be honest with yourself.
I kind of feel like it doesn't even matter if it's a weight thing in itself.
Yeah.
I think just in general, no, it's what you just said is huge. Just in general, we always feel like there is so much to do all of the time. And there is so, like, especially building muscle, because building muscle takes a fuck ton of time. Like, any physique change that is what you see online is not a damn it's not a 6-week shred. It's not a 6-week program. Oh, look what my clients didn't see. No, it's not that stuff. Like, this shit takes so much time. And if you don't allow yourself, when you said that, the second that you said you went to talk to your trainer about you had to talk to your trainer about all of these things that were going on in your own head. We make mountains out of the smallest of things until we give ourselves permission that it's okay. It's almost like you had to voice it with your trainer to then be like, I just gave myself permission to do it. But it's almost like sometimes you need someone else to enable that permission, because you mentioned this yourself as a woman, as women. We put so much pressure, so many expectations on ourselves, all these shoulds. And we need to sometimes give ourselves permission to realize we don't need to figure it out all in one go. It doesn't need to happen all at once. Like, who says that it needs to happen that way? The more that you do that, the more critical you're going to be of yourself. And the more critical you are of yourself, how is that enabling any change? And how is that going to then, feeding back full circle to what I want you to go more into now that you spoke about that, how's that going to allow you to embrace the maintenance when you know that you still have more to go in whatever direction it is? We always feel like we still have more to go. How can we embrace this maintenance? Because no, 15 freaking 100 calories is not your maintenance. And unless you embrace it, then it goes back to the start of the conversation.
Yeah. No, you definitely, I think you definitely have to, what do they call it? Nutrition periodization. Obviously, I mean, maintenance, same thing. Like, I understand that, having gone through this now, and with clients as well. Like, we actually just have, it comes back to compassion and giving ourselves grace and saying it's okay, like, and trusting yourself, right? Like, if you don't trust yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, and in order to do that, you obviously have to go through the process again, let go of the timeline. But when you can do that, it is much more manageable to live in maintenance. Don't get me wrong, it takes time. It's not like you're going to go into maintenance and just be like, yeah, I'm killing this. No, like we're going to struggle. This is what I wanted to talk about as well. Part of this is learning, right? Like it's not like I'm not going to have another episode where I don't where, I never overeat again. Of course, like it happens. It's happened throughout my journey and it's going to happen again. But it's just coming to a point where you understand that it's okay and you have self-awareness around it, and that you're learning strategies and learning to regulate all of these things as a part of that process. And so it takes time, and it's one step at a time. It might be a little bit more than that. You might feel like what you perceive as you're failing, but you're not. You're learning. You take it as a learning opportunity. Maintenance is all about learning, right?
It is.
And you learn all of these skills and how to utilize all of these tools. And if you're in different situations, if you're going to a wedding, vacation, eating out, well, if you're going to go back into a fat loss phase, you can take all that with you as well, vice versa. Maintenance for me is just a continuous learning process. And you kind of let go of that pressure of having to lose weight or whatever your goals are. And so when that pressure is not there, maybe you can give more time to other things like your healing, things like that.
I feel like unless you actually give yourself time to put time into other things, it's going to be very hard for you to sustain anything, because you're not living your life, and everything is going to become about your body. It's going to become about losing weight. And if there's no purpose to it, there's no meaning to it, then it's going to be a very shallow experience where you it's like Goodhart's law, where the means of getting somewhere becomes the goal and you lose the actual goal itself. It's almost like that. The way that I learned about it was like this tennis ball analogy. It's like, the goal is to be as efficient as we can in fitting as many tennis balls as we can into like this tube. So what they did is they cut all the tennis balls in half and fit them all in there. It's like the way, like the actual goal itself meant that, well, we don't actually have any you fit more tennis balls in there, but they're not usable now because your whole pursuit of trying to maximize the goal completely took away from what the intention of that goal was. Because now the whole goal was so you have more tennis balls to play with. You can't play with tennis balls that are cut in half so that you can compact them into a thing. It's like, what are you actually doing this for? And are you still going to have that afterwards? Because if you're depleting yourself and hitting yourself there, and the whole goal is to change your life, feel happy, have energy, have relationships that mean something, you're not going to get to that place through self-shame, self-hate, through these methods where you're just forcing change. The whole food thing as well, the relationship with food, that's the biggest part, because that's where you ended up where you were. But it's never the relationship with food. That should be neutral. The relationship with yourself that then shows up in food. And that's the way that I've seen it as well, because your relationship with yourself, your ability to deal with discomfort, to the way that you deal with your emotions, that just shows up in either food, alcohol, whatever it is. That's your way of outlets. And what did you find that could be helpful for people listening to this that have that negative relationship with food? Because there's always going to be that feel like you weren't happy in your body on the way down still, yet you still had to embrace maintenance without fucking it all off and worrying about, but I'm just going to get lazy, I'm going to gain it back again. So there's the relationship with food that you needed to sustain at the same time as this fear of losing all that you got or gaining weight again while you still have weight to lose. You're telling me that I need to eat more food to maintain? Like, what is this?
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's kind of complex, but let's break it down a bit. I remember so this, I feel like there's just so many different variables at play. So when I first started, I had to learn to say no, which is progress, right? Saying no. So if you're, for example, I have been and still am, but not to the same degree, a people pleaser. And so I had to learn to say no. I didn't feel comfortable navigating social events. Like, yes, you want to learn to have a life, live your life, all of that purpose, right? But for me, initially, I remember just avoiding going out for dinner with friends, avoiding having people over, just things like that temporarily. And when I got more comfortable with tracking, I was able to, and like, again, the theme of this podcast is going to be letting go of the timeline. because as I moved through that process and developed those skills and different tools that I could pull from, like different toolboxes I could pull tools from, as far as like say eating out is concerned, how to navigate that, learning more about that, I became more comfortable with it, and I was able to, you know, successfully get through like a dinner without having blown all my calories. So there's stages.
Can I just touch on that part there? Because that part is something that I actually realized the other day before when I started out with my own coaching like friggin' 11 years ago. One of my big things back then, which kind of evolved because everyone's gone the easy way out, not always the easy way out. It's just that there's a lot of different like ways of viewing things now, but I feel like that's also why so many people struggle. You just mentioned that you had to go through this temporary phase, more restriction. And my huge thing there, which actually led to the greatest success in clients back then, when there wasn't social media, before COVID, before everyone was putting their 2 cents online, I could actually do things the way that I got a lot of results. I'm like, no, things need to be strict to start with, until you realize how good it feels to feel good and to fuel yourself in a certain way. As soon as you start to build this confidence in yourself, you earn flexibility. But these days, it's like, no, you should be flexible because it should be sustainable. It's like, no, not at first. Like, you earn that sustainability by creating the habits, but it's hard to build habits in a volatile environment. Like, give yourself at least half a chance to have something a little bit more strict. Develop some form of routine, develop some self-trust, develop patterns around saying no, all of these things. As soon as you build that within yourself, then you can actually trust yourself to be more flexible, because you know how good it feels. It's almost like when someone actually sticks to something strictly, go out on holidays and eat shit, they realize, I hate feeling this way. I actually know the difference between fueling myself and feeling good versus the opposite. And then you'll want to do more of the good stuff because you know how good it makes you feel versus lethargic. But you can never get to that place if you never do the hard shit first.
I mean, of course, it's context dependent, right? It's so context dependent. And I knew for myself personally by that point, because I had been living that lifestyle for so long. And because I wasn't in a place that I had even come remotely close to dealing with the emotional eating, because if you had put me in that environment, like my first 6 months, I would have just thrown in the towel completely. Like, I was not there yet mentally, my mindset shift, all of that. And so going back to what you said, like initially calorie deficit is restrictive just by nature, obviously, right? But I wouldn't say that I was so restrictive, but I did have to practice restraint, and not just restraint in like the types of food you're eating, but just all aspects of my life. I felt like that I had to do that in the beginning for sure. And then moving along, I'm not going to say that it didn't happen. Of course, it's going to happen. Like, we're still dealing with emotional eating. I think it's something that I now know when I was moving through this myself and going through this journey, still going through this journey. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was emotionally regulating. Like I said, when I was learning about the parenting and stuff, I knew I was emotionally regulating, but I didn't realize the impact that it was having on my weight loss journey and getting stronger. Like, I didn't realize it. It's key. You know, if we emotionally eat, it's key to that. So
I celebrated this, and she kind of was really shocked at why the fuck I was so happy about everything she was doing, because she never did anything except she was just aware of her emotions. And I'm like, this is the biggest win ever, because it's taken how long to get you aware of what it, like, you can never fix something that you're not aware of. So awareness is like the hugest win you can ever have, because otherwise you're going to go through life with confirmation bias, thinking it's your hormones, thinking that friggin' 1,500 calories is your maintenance, but you don't realize that you were just emotionally dysregulated and something went off. And now you completely forgot about that fact. Like, all these things that you start to become aware of are putting you back in the driver's seat. Like, you're back in control, and it's freaking empowering. And it's just like that part right there with the awareness around something that doesn't even make sense on how it's impacting your ability to stay the plan, your ability to just continue on, because you didn't realize that your way of emotionally regulating was with food, was the way that you were parenting. It's like, but that's also because that's what I wanted to say at the start. I bet that it made you reflect on how you were parented and the parenting style of your parents, realizing, hey, this just feels so normal to me because that's what I've grown up around. That's all I know. But then as soon as you start to realize it doesn't have to be that way, that's just what I know because that's what I've been taught, That's the same with food. That's the same with everything else. Is there anything that you want to kind of feed into more, kind of to tie that up?
Yeah, so I say this and I strongly believe this. So people ask me, so you see this, you hear people saying like, do it for your kids. Like, why can't you change for your kids? Don't you see what you're doing to your kids? Or, whatever the case may be. And that's not coming from a place of compassion necessarily all the time, because I've always wanted to do it for my kids. I tried doing it for many reasons. I tried doing it for people. I tried doing it for, whatever. And it never stuck. And inside, of course, I don't want my kids not to live the life that I want them to live. I don't want them to miss out on things, because of my insecurities or my limitations, whether physical, emotional, mental, whatever the case may be. But it was never enough to, did it trigger change? Yes. But did that change last? No. It wasn't until I finally chose to do it for myself. Not because my parents were saying it, not because, maybe my doctor was saying it. So I always say no one could influence me or force me. And so when I chose to do it for myself at the time, it had to be for me. I had to make that decision. And that making that decision meant facing my inner struggles and facing the things that I've been suppressing. That's what shifted everything. And now that I'm on the other side of it, my kids are the days that I don't want to or I'm not feeling motivated. My kids are that motivator now. Of course they are. Right? So it's easy for many to look at people struggling with weight and just say that they don't care, but they do care. Of course we care. We wear, unlike other issues, say like alcoholism or drug addiction, we wear it on our sleeves. We like on our body, our emotions, like we're wearing a bodysuit that's telling you that I'm struggling. There's something I'm suppressing, right? Like we don't just, we know you don't have to tell me that I'm fat or I'm overweight or that, I need to do something about it or use a fear tactic or say that, this or that. It's very complicated, very complex. So
Yeah,
I think
I do feel like the reason for a lot of it is everything that you just said. It's we don't stop to realize that it's not as simple as people make it seem. And there's always something under the surface. It's just that we aren't aware of the fact that there could be something deeper. And then as soon as we become aware of that, that's when we start to get curious about it. That's when we start to do the inner work. We start to look into inner work, then do the inner work. And I do actually think that part on the kids piece is really important, because it's not even about the why anymore. It's about what does this actually mean for the life that you want to live? Because even if it comes down to your why is still something about why you want to change where you are right now versus how do you want your life to live? What is going to compel you towards that? What is it going to change in your life? You want to be able to, you couldn't move around before. And for a lot of people that don't have a lot of weight to lose, it's like, well, don't you want to actually feel proud, feel strong, not want to change your body all the time, not nitpick your body all the time? Because I hardly can imagine a life of you always noticing every flaw on your body, wanting to body check every surface, pinching your love handles or whatever the hell. I hardly imagine that's a life that you want to keep on living, because that's miserable. Like that is miserable. So we all want to be better, but it's just like, what's stopping you? Yeah. The solution to get there, we already know the solution to get there. It's not about that anymore. It's what keeps stopping you, what keeps getting in your way. What are you not seeing? Where are your blind spots?
Yeah, so I say, I have this post, and I can't quote it direct, like word for word, but this is how I feel. The why is often secondary to, the cause. So the reasons for inaction, so let's address the reasons for inaction versus your whys, because the whys become a byproduct of you addressing your reasons for inaction, right? Like mine did, my kids. My kids were always my why. It just wasn't strong enough, right? Like that. But once I addressed the reasons for my inaction, my kids are now naturally the byproduct of my why. Like my why is my kids. So yeah.
Everything you do serves a purpose. Figure out what that purpose is, and then you unlock the gateway to your why. Because everything we do is self-protection. Self-protection.
Yeah, and like the whys can be initially like, listen, aesthetics. Of course, my why has always been that. I mean, it is for many people. And it will always, play a small role in my why, but what's that deeper why? And when you address those reasons for inaction, those deeper whys also, they get implanted. Right?
All right, wait, I'm like adding on to this again, but you just triggered something with a couple of clients that I know that listen to the podcast, that this relates to your work as well. Like, for those of you who are scared to, like, well, not scared, but you feel like people pleasers, most of us as women are people pleasers, but if you feel like you need to work, like you need to prove yourself to your superiors or whatever else it is, or you need to prove yourself as productive, or you keep working through all the time, you never take your breaks, that's going to show itself in food. It's like, yeah, okay, I didn't mean to bring up food here because I'm thinking of something else, but somehow
No.
food but it's going to actually show itself in food as well, like the cravings, because you're going to go to, because that's your only time for relief. Or it's like you're so go all the time that you're completely dysregulated. You're craving food without even realizing, or you're extremely well behaved at work, but then you just binge at home because now all of a sudden you can relax. But that wasn't what I was talking about. What I was talking about is your why, not your why, your reason for inaction, as in not acting on slowing down at work, taking breaks, being able to just like ease into work a little bit more versus have so much pressure to outperform everybody. Your reason against taking that action is the fact that you don't want to either slack on your job, get penalized, get a poor credit card rating. I don't know what they call it. Get a poor employee report, something, whatever. Just get poor ratings and looked down upon or seen as inadequate or incompetent, so that you keep like trying to people please every single person at work. And as much as you know the why is, you're going to be a lot more balanced. You're going to be able to put a lot more time into your walking, your training, everything that can grow you. You know the why is amazing, but your reason for not working towards that is because you don't want to let the work to slide, because you don't want to be seen as inadequate. It's like, deal with that first, figure out why you feel this need to overperform. And as soon as you deal with that cause of inaction, that cause of I need to prove myself, all of a sudden you've unlocked the very thing that you've been wanting to do your whole life, when you know that the why is very much there.
Yeah. Like it's just, it makes so much sense, because so much of the industry focuses on find your why, and just roll with it, ride with it. But there's a reason why those whys don't stick, because it's like, well, why are we avoiding the things in the first place? Why aren't we doing the things that we know we need to do? Why aren't we eating healthier? Why aren't we going for walks? Why aren't we moving? Why aren't we strength training? Why? Like, what is holding you back? Whether it's something deep or not, or whether it's something just more surface level, regardless, like we have to address that, right? So, and you said it, I mean, you gave a beautiful example there. So
this isn't about timelines. That's the title of this damn podcast. The industry is big on finding your why, but your why will never stick unless you do this.
Yeah, I strongly believe that. A lot of this is, and what I'm learning, and for me and for you, I can tell, you know, the coaching part of it, which might differ from, again, the industry standard, isn't just about numbers. Why I say this isn't just about check-ins with spreadsheets and, you know, numbers. It's about more than that. It's about meeting you where you're at. It's emotional regulation. It's helping you find those strategies and what works for you. And, you know, that's why I'm in Jeb's program. It's just been so rewarding and so helpful. And, you know, he says it best, like, this is one aspect that's missing from a lot of coaching.
It really is. It really is. I am so grateful for you coming on. Maybe like in a couple of months, I need to bring you back on again, because I honestly love conversations with people who are in it, because you're coming at it with real experience. Let's talk about experience. Let's talk about what moves in. Let's talk about you as a fucking human. Like,
connection, right? You said it, connection. Like, that's where it needs to be, and we're lacking that. And, you know, and I don't talk a lot about, you know, cortisol, this, that, like just the basics, eat your protein, blah, 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 because I don't think it's about that as much as it is about being regulated, the emotional regulation, you know, the nervous system, and, you know, the root cause of emotional eating. Of course, you know, some of the stuff is going to be outside of our scope, but most of it, it's just like, yeah, let's just figure out some strategies. What can you do in this moment? Help you understand, become aware, and be in that moment where you can say, okay, this is what's going on. This is the state that I'm in. This is what I can do right now. Instead of reacting, I can go for a walk, listen to some music, like you mentioned before. So yeah, there's just so much to this that's probably missing. Not just numbers.
Yeah, That's exactly it. And I wish that more people spoke about this stuff as from true experiences instead of just trying to, but there's so many people online, you have to say something that stands out and it's ridiculous. But this just ties circle, which ties up this very podcast with the very thing that Dal said at the start. Curate your social media, focus on your own lane, get a damn coach and get them to call the shots. Like actually allow them to call, but get a good coach first. Actually do, like get a good coach. And most of the coaches that I follow and talk about and share and all that kind of stuff are really good coaches. Everyone that you've heard on this podcast, I would say is someone that you can trust, because I don't do the bullshit with ads and athletic greens. Here's my code. Like, honestly, anyone on this podcast is someone that is worth listening to. And once you can figure out who to block out, you'll stop thinking that your body is broken, which I hate saying because it sounds like freaking ChatGPT. So I can't think of another way to say it. That doesn't sound like I'm talking AI bullshit, but you'll stop thinking that you're it still sounds like ChatGPT. You'll stop you'll start feel like you're in control of your body again versus your body is in control of you, because you're the one in the driver's seat. You can change the trajectory. But first, you need to have that level of awareness. You need to figure out what is actually stopping you from taking the action. Like, who cares about your why right now? Because that doesn't matter. You can have the strongest why in the world, but you're never going to do the thing that you really want to do. Like, it's not a matter of consistency. It's why just be consistent. You're not losing weight because you're not consistent. Well, no fucking shit. Why aren't you consistent? Let's start there. Yes, I actually like that as the ending. So let's start there. Why aren't you consistent? Because we know that that is why you're not getting results. Figure out why. Figure out what it is you need to address, and the rest is a byproduct. Thank you for coming on. You guys will you'll hear me next podcast, and I hope you reach out to Dal. And if you're struggling with any of those issues, if you're struggling with maintenance, if you're struggling with identity change, if you want a book recommendation or a podcast recommendation that she listened to, or an ebook or whatever, just reach out to her, ask her. I'll let you say your Instagram handle so people can look for it in case they don't check the description, because sometimes I don't myself. But what's your Instagram handle?
It's simple. Just Nutrition Coaching by Dal, D-A-L.
There you go. Give my podcast a 5-star rating. I still want to get to that 100 mark, which is my goal, and I'll be very grateful. I love you guys, and you will hear me, see me on the next podcast.